you don't realise how much somebody's voice is part of you until you can't hear it again. Death and life are so intertwined. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, you can't.
So it's like darkness and light. You know, I feel like
it's both all of the time, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's joyful and sad. That is life.
It's a death sentence.
So welcome back to It's a Death Sentence. We haven't been here for a while, have we, Emma? We've been very busy.
Yeah, we've been very busy with death-related matters.
Yeah, not in a good sense. But thank you for joining back in and listening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's been quite a period of reflection on so many levels. So we've managed to listen to some of our own podcasts, which is, you think you remember the interviews, but you don't. So you listen back to them and it's always quite a good little growing experience, isn't it? But we're a month in. And so I lost my dad a month ago, and Carrie, you lost your brother 9 days after.
Yes, yeah.
So there you have it.
So we've had a double whammy of death, which is...
Yeah, really has been quite something.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a good idea, Carrie, to explain to the listeners about the concept of the podcast.
So when I thought about the podcast, when I first initially thought about it, it was more... I'd found out that my brother was poorly and that he had cancer, and like the prognosis wasn't looking great.
Yeah.
And I wanted to document him and have him recorded, have his voice recorded, have his laughter recorded, have all the memories that I have of him recorded for his son, because he's got a little boy. And it was more for when his son grew up, that I was thinking then he could listen to what he was like, rather than rely on somebody saying, oh, he was an angel and he was this, because he wasn't, because he had a dirty sense of humour, he had a funny laugh, he was cheeky, he had a nickname for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, he was all those things that you can't capture in a memory.
No.
And that's why I wanted to record it. So in my infinite wisdom, I thought, oh, you know, I'll because we both listen to a lot of podcasts, we both listen to similar podcasts, me and my brother, and I said to him, oh, should we do it together? Like, thinking I wouldn't focus on death. That wasn't my initial thing. It was more focusing on life and life experiences and things that his son will go through in life that he could maybe offer wisdom on in a funny, sort of jovial way for the future. And that was the premise of it. That was why I wanted to start the podcast. I pitched it to him. He was happy. You know, I got things moving, started trying to make this a reality. And when it came down to it, he just got too unwell, and he didn't want to be part of it. He didn't want to think about anything to do with death. All he could think about was dying, and he did not want to be reminded of that. So he didn't ultimately want to go through with being on the podcast, which is absolutely fine. That was his choice. And I really thought, oh, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe it's, this is a sign. Maybe I should just, keep my ideas to myself, and it wasn't a good idea. Until I spoke to a friend of ours, James, and he suggested that, just do it anyway and see what happens. Maybe you could record me, for instance. So James was the first person I went to record. And it was really after a conversation with him where he said, he'd lost his mum and his dad, and that he really wished he had them on tape, or that he could hear their voice. And I don't know if it was him or somebody else that said to me, like, you don't realise how much somebody's voice is part of you until you can't hear it again.
That's such a poignant sentence. I don't know who it was that said that to
Yeah,
you,
and it really stuck with me. And I just thought...
Because I think that fades as well. So you can recall somebody's voice quite well until you have a period of time of not seeing that person, whether that's through death or through splitting up with somebody or whatever that is, where you then can't draw on that memory anymore. It seems to get increasingly harder.
And I think that's why music is so poignant, isn't it? Because you can listen to music at any time and you can hear that voice.
And it can throw you back into that absolute moment you were in.
Yeah,
when you first
throws you back into that memory, gives you that, makes you cry, makes you laugh, makes you want to sing along, gives you joy, makes you sad. And I really feel passionately that recording somebody's voice and actually not just remembering them for who they were, but actually recording them whilst they're being themselves.
And
for me,
life.
is the biggest thing that I get out of the podcast, is listening to people being themselves, being their most authentic. Like, nobody's more of a professional on their own life than them.
Yeah.
So talking
you're the
about,
expert.
you're the expert on your own life. So talking about you and what you actually think. And that for me gives me real joy.
Doesn't that tie in so beautifully? Carrie and I have just had a walk. We like to start these sessions
start the
with
day with
a walk. And we've just been talking about the podcast as we do, and talking about your brother, talking about my dad, and how the podcast is, how it's grown, and we're still in our infancy and we're always trying out new ideas. But what you've just said ties in so beautifully with what we've been talking about, where we've been worried, haven't we, that it's so death orientated, because our mission, if you like, is to normalise conversations around death. But actually, most of our podcasts are celebrating the person's life if we're doing an interview.
And
they're interview based.
And we said as well, haven't we, that death and life are so intertwined. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, you can't.
So it's like darkness and light. You know, I feel like
it's both all of the time, isn't it? It's joyful and sad. That is life.
And I do think, you know, that our podcast is hopefully doing that for those who listen to it and take part.
Yeah. So today, really, we've decided to go quite free flowing, haven't we? Because there's so much to discuss. But I think while we're talking about your brother, and you're happy to if you are, I think let's firstly talk about how old he was. So for anybody listening who's lost a sibling who's our age, you know, very, very young.
Absolutely.
So Carrie and I are both 43. But how old was your brother?
My brother was 45.
So
45
very young.
when he died.
Still very young.
Yeah.
And he left behind
young family,
and what?
A son and a wife.
Yeah.
I mean, cancer it's a dirty word, isn't it?
Yeah, still.
And
people have got a lot better talking about it, which is great.
Yeah.
But
I mean, just horrific. Invades the body, invades your soul, invades your mind, everything. You know, how can anybody feel good about having a diagnosis of cancer?
Mm.
And he actually, you know, he did remarkably well considering.
Well, you told me previously when I asked you what his prognosis was, that he actually chose not to find out, didn't he?
He kept a lot of his medical information to himself.
Right.
And a lot of the time he put his faith, rightly or wrongly, in the medical team who gave him fantastic care. And he basically said, I don't want to know, because if I know, then I may, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I may give in to that.
Mine's body physiology. My mum was a massive believer in that. She really hugely believed that once she was delivered, her death sentence, which is what it was, and she lived to the day that they said, you've got a year. You know?
I know, it's madness,
and
isn't
so
it?
somewhere in our psyche and our psychology, we
live up to that.
live up to that. Or we don't. People can go the other way, can't they? They can go completely the other way. But maybe your brother, he knew that about himself, do you think? And he...
Yeah, I think
it must have been quite lonely for him to keep that to himself, do you think?
Yeah, and his wife is fantastically supportive and a wonderful woman, and she has supported him because he was not the easiest of characters.
Are you being diplomatic, Carrie?
No, he was a right arsehole when he wanted to be, but he was wonderful in so many ways. And do you know what I liked about him? That he was actually just authentically himself.
Yeah.
And he had, you know, a nickname for everybody, and that was probably his way of showing affection. Very funny, very witty, and wonderful in lots of ways, but also he had his challenges, and he wasn't afraid of admitting that. He knew very well what he was like as a person, that he could be difficult, but also he could be wonderful. So, like anybody, I suppose.
I just think some people hide it better.
Absolutely. I'm a right tyrant.
I've just been a bitch for a long time.
I mean, you said it, God. But yeah, for me, I think that sibling loss, sometimes you're sort of like, you're the forgotten griever a little bit, because you're so concentrated on his wife, his son, rightly so, his mum, his dad.
But it's
people
you
forget.
had a lifetime with him prior to any of that.
I think people forget that your sibling is the only person who's made up exactly the same as you in the world. You're literally made the same. Your DNA is the same.
Yeah.
And when that person's gone, you lose a part of yourself.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time like looking at old memories and seeing pictures of us when we were little, and watching, you know, Labyrinth he was massive fan of David Bowie, one of mine as well, and listening to the music, and some of the music is going to be at his funeral next week. And, you know, I've spent a lot of time sort of thinking about not only what I've lost, but what he's lost.
Isn't that interesting?
And what his family will lose in the future.
I think that's really interesting that you've come to that at this point, because I know I always go back to the loss of my mum, but I remember the grief was so profound when I lost Mom. All I could do is, it's my grief. So you're actually coming at it from a different angle where you're almost a lost griever, as you've just worded it. I was like, this is my grief. But it wasn't till months or even years later where I had this epiphany moment where I thought, she fucking lost out.
Yeah.
She was 60 years old. Your brother was 45 years old. He's lost out. So whilst we're sat in our own grief, which we have to be, because that's human nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you've come to that quite quickly, that he, we're thinking about his son, we're thinking about his wife, we're thinking about your mom and your dad and you, but it's him that's lost out on life.
On life, yeah. And I understand why he was so fucking angry.
Yes.
I mean, like, if somebody said to me, that's it, you're never going to be there to see your children grow up or get married or do all those things, I'd be fucking angry. So I get it. I get why he was angry. And I also know he was very private. He didn't want anyone to see him unwell. He was very guarded about how he looked. He didn't, when I went to see him recently, there were stipulations. You can't ask this, you can't ask me that.
Really?
Like,
What he put those
he
out
said,
himself?
you can come and see me, but I do not want to discuss
The following.
Yeah, the following things. And, I stuck to that because ultimately it's his wishes, not mine.
Yeah.
And he's the one who's dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I've had some really, really like sad times in the last few weeks. And I do feel now like I'm trying to sort of be as positive about what we did have and the time we did have together. Yeah. Although it's really sad that's, we didn't have any more time. That's just the nature of my personality. I'm trying to be
ever the
optimistic and think, well, what can I do now? So I've lost him, and his wife has lost her husband, her son has lost his dad, my mum has lost her son. But what can we do to carry on and give back in his memory? So all I can do now is my unconditional love that was for him is now for his family, and I can try and be there as much as I can for them. Yeah. And he asked me to make sure I'd be there, and I will be. Yeah. And I'm a woman of my word.
That's interesting as well. You've just used the phrase unconditional love, which is what we have for our loved ones, obviously. But when that person dies, I think that it's like a void. Like you've got this love that has been channeled at this one person, and it is no longer available.
Where does it
go? People go out and buy dogs. I did. My sister's just done that. They, I don't know, try and find a new hobby or whatever. But actually, it's a real physical, tangible thing. Where do I put the love that I had for this person now they're no longer here? Of course, you keep loving them, but
that love turns into grief, isn't it?
Yeah.
That grief is like the love really that was lost.
Yeah.
And I will forever grieve his loss, but I need to channel that love into being for his family.
Present
and some of the things that he couldn't be there for.
Yeah.
And that would be my priority. And be there for my mum and be there for my dad. And my dad, unfortunately, is not well enough to be at his funeral, which in itself is like soul destroying for him.
Yeah. And for you.
And for everybody. That's his child. He's my dad. You want to be there to support them. And I am a person who will go to support other people and put myself last. But I have really taken, especially with my job and doing what I do for a job, I've really had to take some time to address how I feel about it. And that's how I'm able to talk about it. But had you spoke to me last week or the week before, I might not have been able to.
But we know that grief isn't linear. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we stay, here in this like constant all the time. We don't. We dips in and out. Moments within an hour or a day where you're doing okay, and then you find yourself, oh, I'm okay. Why do I feel okay? I feel guilty for feeling okay. This is constant,
constant cycle, isn't it? But I think losing a sibling is one of the griefs that can be forgotten, almost like sorry for your loss, and then that's it. But actually,
it's losing a sibling as an adult.
Yeah,
in particular, I think.
And as well, he was supposed to be there with me if it was the natural order of things, and when my mum and dad aren't here anymore, he's the one who's supposed to help me out. And actually, I'm on my own now, if that happens. Yeah. God forbid. But it's getting used
And
to
you have to think
used to
about all
that.
the practicalities of that as well. That's, yeah.
You know, and I will have no one to share my grief with should anything happen to my mum or dad, because he's the person that you share it with.
And he's the one that is going to understand the most.
And he understands it and he feels the same.
Yeah. It doesn't
But
matter.
he
how
won't be
many-
here.
Yeah.
So it's
You
difficult.
can't tell somebody else. You can explain to them, this is the environment we grew up in, this is what our upbringing was like, and people will nod and agree, but they'll never experience it. It's you can't.
No.
So that will be, I imagine that again, when that happens, is like another form of grief, isn't it? You know, there's no one to go to. Interestingly, it's the reason I had 2 children, you know. I remember looking at Franco, he was a baby on the floor, and knowing that if I hadn't had my sister, losing my mum would have been unbearable, absolutely unbearable. And so I had another child because of it really quickly, far too quickly, but because I thought about him. So, I really feel for what you've just said, because it isn't the natural order of things. And it is something that you will have to, I know you've got a wonderful husband, you've got a good family, you've got grown-up children and little children, but you're never going to get that back with him. You're never going to be able to have those conversations where that person implicitly knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a look, isn't there? You can give your sibling and they just know.
Yeah.
You know, that you found the same things funny. They're your first friend, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
They're your first friend.
And enemy.
Yeah. I mean, they're the only person really that you can love and hate at the same time.
Yeah.
I've got so many memories of like us fighting, or I mean,
Did you win any of these fights?
all the time.
Yeah.
My brother,
Were
bless
you
him.
harder than him?
Sometimes, yeah, I think so.
Imagine.
I'll tell you what our relationship was. We've always been opposites. I was always chubby, chunky, big, loud. Hi, I'm here, you know, and he's always been tiny, skinny, very quiet, a little bit unsure. And we used to say that I was his big sister, even though I was his little sister.
Okay, interesting.
And my dad, interestingly, I went to my dad to write something for his eulogy, to see what my dad would like to say. And I don't know if this is a compliment or not. It was definitely not a compliment. My dad said, David was an absolute angel, and I loved him from the moment he was born. He was beautiful. Our lives were perfect. And then Carrie came along. Which I was like, wow, that's really rude. But I used to, and I laughed it. I wrote something for his eulogy as well. And I did say that he loved me from the moment I was born, like I was his little sister.
Yeah.
And I bossed him around from the moment I could talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, like we had that relationship.
Yeah.
We were opposites, but we had so many things in common, and we just worked together. And, you know, and as adults, we both ended up in weird jobs. He ended up in pest control and like killing animals, and I ended up in dealing with dead bodies, and he was dealing with dead rats. You know, it was like, so it's
a real common theme there.
Yeah, I said, well, why are we in such macabre jobs? You know, there's something wrong with us fundamentally. And we used to laugh at things like that. And then that's when we used to say, oh, we could do a podcast about it, you know, about how a pet exterminator and a mortician walk in the room. Do you know what I mean? Like a joke like that. So, you know, we had lots of similarities. We both loved horror, into pop culture, all that, you know.
And also, you know, when we've spoken about your upbringing, you've always said to me that you moved around. You were in different areas. And so those experiences of life that are quite difficult to explain to another person as an adult, you know, I was here and I was there, and you did those things together.
Absolutely.
The only person that experienced that with you from exactly the same viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point where when he bought his house with his wife, he said, I'm going to die in this house. I am not moving again. Basically, he said, wow. I've moved that many times. They'll have to carry him out of here in a box. So regardless of when that was going to be, he would have been there forever. Yeah, so he was he was looking for, he was very much a homebody, and he, you know, adored his wife and son, and he wanted that home to be secure,
really constant,
which, you know, is
and he got that.
Yeah, which is great, and he had lots of support. So
the funeral is coming up this week. How are you feeling about it?
I sort of anxious about it. I'm sort of hoping for it. I'm not rushing it away, but I want it to come and go and be done.
Yeah.
For lots of different reasons, and for a bit of closure maybe for my mum. I think my mum and some of the other family members, they need it done. It needs to be done.
But what about you? Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I probably do.
Yeah.
I feel like there needs to be an finish point.
An end.
Yeah.
I get that.
And a finish point to signify the new normal. So this is how this is going to change.
Yeah.
And to show up in different ways for people.
Mm-hmm.
And and for his wife and his son, I love them both dearly, and now they can actually, they've been so restricted over the last couple of years. They haven't been able to make any plans or go anywhere because he's been so unwell, or he was frightened to catch anything. It really sort of took a toll on what they could do, which was great because they were supporting him. And in that moment, they knew that was the right thing to do, to all be together.
It does mean that they can branch out,
but now they can actually, see a bit more of life and live a bit more, which is sadly not with him.
Do you think they will do that?
Yes, I think they will. Yeah, I think they will. I definitely think they will. And, hopefully I'll be there to do.
Because you've got a bit of a geographical gap there, haven't you, between where you live and where they live. But do you think they'll stay there?
I think they'll stay there. And I think they'll stay there. I think it would just be, we need to be more conscious about what we're doing. And, you keep people in your life and that you want to see, don't you? And you make the effort. And
it changes, We were saying earlier, weren't we? All relationships, they come and go, and sometimes they're transient, and sometimes these massive events in our life, they dictate a path with another human being, with you and your sister-in-law, that may not have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might.
As my nephew gets older, he won't want to be seen with anybody. We'll be far too uncool for him. And
you?
Yeah, well, I am cool, but as they get older, they'll change their mind and then they'll come back. It's like I'm always going to be there for them in whatever capacity they need me.
Yeah.
And she's so young, she's got his wife, she's got her whole life ahead of her, hopefully. Another lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's meant for her will be what's meant for her. So I will support them in whatever I can. But yeah, it's been very difficult. And obviously it's been difficult with work and thinking about going back into work and dealing with dead bodies and dead people, because although I'm not connected to them emotionally at the minute,
it's too
close to home.
Yeah.
Obviously your dad dying and then my brother dying literally within days of each other. And I had a loss at work as well. A colleague at work died who I have worked with closely for the last couple of years. It's just a lot. It's a lot for any human to take on board. It's a lot. And if you don't recognise that, then there's a problem.
Interestingly, it's not off topic, but you were telling me recently that within your job, when you think about what it is you're doing day in and day out, not only is it massively physical, it's hugely emotional, the things that you're seeing, but there's not really any compassionate support there, is there?
I think it's limited, but I think it's there, I think, if you want it, but you'd have to seek it out. And actually, when you are having your own family,
how a therapist has to go and see a therapist.
Yeah.
To do an offload. That really should be in place for you.
It should be. It needs to be.
It does need to be.
I definitely think that going forward with the loss that we've had at work as well, that will be something that changes. They seem to, it's moving to being more responsive to that sort of thing. But it's why it takes
somebody to push it along.
Yeah, takes something tragic to happen. And for someone to say, actually, no, I need to take time out because of this, for then something to come of it.
So how do you think you will feel about going back to work?
I think
so you've got your brother's funeral this week. You've had a fair bit of time out, and you've needed to as well, actually, because you were injured. Let's not forget that. It seems to have paled into insignificance.
Oh, no,
that you were injured.
I still am. Still can't. Yeah, still not 100%.
Have you thought about the implications of how it might make you feel going back?
I haven't thought too much about it.
Okay.
At the minute, I feel like if I think too much about it, I will put myself off. So I think I am a person who will just, when it's time to go back and when I am well enough to go back and when my shoulder's good, I will go in and I'll just do it.
Yeah, but you are.
And then I will think
head down, carry on, aren't you?
Yeah, I will think about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times, you could talk everything to death, and I think action is really important.
Yeah.
And
well, we are our thoughts, aren't we, Carrie?
We are our thoughts. Our thoughts are things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if anything, I can take what's happened to me and how I feel, and I can use that to help somebody else. So if a colleague at work then faced the same thing, I know that I would act a certain way.
Yeah.
That I would have wanted to be treated that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can then pay it forward, basically. So sort of be the person for them that wasn't there for me.
Okay.
So I don't see it as a negative. I'm not into negativity. I don't like to think about negative things. Try to think about things in a positive way. And I just think, well, everything happens for a reason. I feel like I injured my shoulder. I was off work and unwell with that. And then my brother died. I feel like it was obviously I was meant to be off work. I needed to take that time off. Yeah. And the universe works in weird ways, doesn't it? So
if we had anyone listening to this episode who was in a similar position to you, so who's an adult who's lost a sibling.
Because we have interviewed a couple of people, haven't we? We interviewed that lovely lady from Poetry.
Yeah, and she lost her brother.
And obviously our friend from Dread Boy Studios. Yeah. So he lost his brother Alex. So we have dealt with sibling loss. But I would love to hear from somebody else, how they felt. Because I do feel like your grief is forgotten a little bit.
I think it's a really interesting phrase. And I wonder how many other people who have had sibling loss feel like that. I think if there's anybody listening that does, please get in touch with us. And we'll have a talk to you about it. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I wonder if that's a common thread. That people who've lost a sibling do feel like that.
I feel if I've thought it, then somebody else must have thought it. I'm not that original.
Very original. Very original.
But thank you for listening and allowing me to talk about him.
Yeah. I think it'd be very interesting for us both to perhaps have a month, 2 months, and then come back and re-record something on reflection.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we're a month down the line almost anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
We're dying to talk to you. Please get in touch.
Yeah. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to It's a Death Sentence. Please keep listening to our weekly episodes.
And if you like our show, please like, share and subscribe.
We are dying to talk to you.